Today on the podcast, we have Janine Beckie. Janine is a Canadian national team and Portland Thorns forward. She's an Olympic gold medalist from the Tokyo Games in 2021 and an NWSL champion with the Portland Thorns in 2022. Janine and I were teammates at Man City during the 2020-2021 season. Janine, welcome to the women's game.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm so happy to be here.
It is so great to be with you, Janine. I'm really excited to see you. So first things first, Canada just named the roster for the Olympics this summer. Congratulations on being selected. I know that you unfortunately missed the World Cup last summer due to your ACL injury. So tell us how you're feeling now being named to the roster and heading into your third Olympics.
I feel great. I'm just really grateful and excited, and I just feel honored that I get to play, as a kid. When you think about playing, I know you probably had the same dreams as a kid, and I don't know if it was always soccer for me, but I always wanted to play in the Olympics. That was like the beacon of all sport. And so I guess I never expected to be sitting here at almost 30 years old and be playing in my third Olympic Games. I just feel really lucky. We have a really great team. I'm really excited to go, and this is the first tournament we're going into as defending champions. So there's a different kind of pressure there that I know you understand. I'm just really excited.
Wow, that is really cool to hear that. You and I have talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to touch back on the idea that getting injured and missing a major tournament or just being away from the game for a while almost makes coming back to it, you're more aware of how grateful you should be for every single day. And you and I talked about that a year or two ago. And so I'm curious, if you've been back from your ACL for a little bit now, you've been playing regularly, do you still think every day how grateful you are to be out there?
Absolutely. I think it's kind of cliche to be like, you do take it for granted, and cliches are cliche because they're true, right? It's just, you always have to preface this as cliche, but there really is a difference that you feel when something is taken away from you in a way that, you hope for everyone. I wouldn't wish an ACL injury on on anyone. It's terrible. An injury that keeps you out for a long time is just not what anyone wants to do. And I think when I was making my way back, you kind of have these moments where you're like, I don't think I'm ever going to be the same again. Or, there was a point before I was walking where I was like, I don't even know what it's going to feel like to walk, let alone run. And I'm sure you've had those same feelings. And you just kind of go day by day. And then eventually I was lucky enough to get back on the field, and I feel great. I think every single day I go out there, sometimes my knee reminds me hey, I'm still here. I still hurt sometimes. Don't ignore me. But there really is a sense of gratitude that is different than before my injury. And I think when you add all of the elements of the game back into your life, the coaching decisions, the playing pressures, the pressure to perform and win, and all these things that you just haven't had in a year, I just have been really clear that I don't want to lose that gratitude in the midst of getting back into all of the things that can make you feel like a mundane kind of everyday, I'm just going to training today and we have a game this week. And so when I'm starting to feel those things creep in, I try and remind myself, what were you feeling last year at this point? And that seems to snap me out of things pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's incredible perspective. I've always enjoyed talking to you about that. Okay, a little pivot, some other big news. You recently just got engaged, Janine. Congratulations. Can you tell us whatever you want? Tell us the story. Tell us about your fiance. When's the wedding? What do you want to tell us?
Yes. My fiance is incredible. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased, but his name is Ethan, and we actually met in Manchester. So, Yep. So it's been a whirlwind. We met while I was still playing for City, and then the beginning of our relationship was my transition back over to Portland. And from the very beginning, he was very selfless in helping me move to Portland, and he's in Miami, so we do long distance sometimes, and that can be difficult, but he's incredible. He runs his own business, and one of the perks of not having to be in a team environment all year last year was that we got to get a little trip in down to Mexico, and took our parents with us, and he popped the question down there. So I don't know how I didn't realize that bringing my mom and his parents on vacation with us, they're our best friends. So that just didn't faze me. Just during that vacation, he popped the question, and it was Yeah, it was more than I could have ever imagined. So we're incredibly happy. This is a really fun time between getting engaged and getting back on the field. It's been a very busy last year, but yeah, I couldn't be more thankful to have found my partner, and I'm really excited to get married.
Oh, I'm so happy for you, Janine. That is so exciting. I can't wait to hear all the things as everything continues. So you mentioned you and Ethan met in Manchester, where you and I were teammates for just one quick little season. It was right in the middle of the pandemic, and I remember I got there and I had to quarantine alone for 2 weeks at the Stay City Hotel. And I remember I didn't really know you that well. I just knew that you had some American/Canadian ties, and I think you had played with my sister, and of course I just knew who you were, and you were so sweet. You delivered me a little coffee when I was in my lonely hotel room by myself, and you were so welcoming, and I felt like you kind of were always playing that role of welcoming new people and being the glue that tied everyone together. You'd have us over for dinner. So I'm curious, what are some of your lasting memories of our time together at City?
I was so excited when you signed. I was like, it's just different. I loved living in England. If I could go back and do it all again, I would. I loved my time there so much. And then when you have someone coming from the same culture that you are from, it just feels a little bit different, and it feels a little bit like home. And I was the only North American on the team for a while, and then you and Rose came, and then Abby came, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's coming. And I guess I held the feeling that I want everyone to feel, especially in that environment. It was really lonely when I first got there. My first year was really hard. And the girls were great. It's not a reflection of that. It's just when you move so far away from home and you're in a new environment, there's just very few things that can make you feel not isolated. And so when you came, I was just like, well, this is already the pandemic, and she's in this tiny little hotel room in the middle of this city that she's so unfamiliar with. I was like, the least I can do is bring this girl a coffee. So
Oh.
I'm so happy that you felt that way. But oh my gosh, I have so many memories from my time in England, and that year specifically. I think there's so many funny memories about being quarantined and being isolated. And I remember when the second lockdown happened and we were only allowed to come into the facility to train, we had to get our throat and nose swabbed every single day in the parking lot before you could go into the building. And then you're in different areas. And it was just you kind of look back on it and you're like, how did we get through that?
I remember being well, soccer is still the only thing that matters. And it was kind of a way bigger deal than one soccer season. But we were going into the facility every day because we were of course we have to train.
Mm-hmm,
Isn't that wild?
It's so weird. I don't know in the grand scheme of things how we were able to do that, but in the midst of a global pandemic, and we're just keeping on, training and playing games. And it was really fun though, because I think from a safety perspective, there were so few people that we could see. And so it, in one way or another, kind of forced us to be together. And I remember coming over to your apartment and Pat cooking, and it was just a really fun way to connect. And I was just really, really grateful that you guys were there, and it was so fun, and I wish it could have lasted longer. But yeah, I mean, my memories from England and those COVID seasons specifically are definitely very much cherished.
I know. Well, me too. We're going to touch back on Manchester in a little bit, but for now, I want to start with your Canadian roots. So, Janine, you were born in Colorado, but you have Canadian family. And at the time we record this, you have 105 caps. You've scored 36 goals for the national team. So tell us a little bit about your Canadian heritage. Who in your family is Canadian, and how did you wind up playing for that national team?
Everyone is Canadian. So both my parents and all three of my older siblings were born in Saskatchewan, which is farmland, very flat, very cold, very, very cold in the winter. And all my extended family are all over Canada, mostly in Saskatchewan. I have an aunt that lives in Vancouver, some cousins. So everyone's up there, which is really fun. And yeah, so like you said, I was born in Colorado. I grew up in the Colorado youth system playing for Real Colorado, which people watching this probably have heard. Sophia Smith, Mallory Pugh, and then obviously Lindsay Horan played on the dark side for Rush. But yeah, I played against Lindsay since we were probably, 10 or 11. Her team was always really good, which is not a surprise to anyone listening. But so I grew up in the Colorado youth system, went to school at Texas Tech University, and just totally went through the kind of the American way of sport. And then it was around the U20 World Cup, and I was playing with the U.S. youth teams. I think my first camp was under 18s with like Rose and Lindsay and Emily Sonnet and all of those, which just makes it that much more fun that we get to play against each other now. And when the U20 World Cup came around, the U20 Canadian coach reached out to me and said, "We've been tracking you. We know you have the ability to play for Canada. Have you ever thought about it?" And I was like, how do I answer this? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he said, "Well, we'd love if you'd come to a camp, no strings attached. If it's not for you, like FIFA rules say you can go back and play for the US." And so I was like, talked it over with my family and ended up going up for a camp. And the way soccer works and life works is so funny because the first camp I ever was at with Canada was in Portland. And Christine Sinclair came in and spoke to us and said hello. And that was the first time I had ever met Sink. And so that was my first camp.
Wow.
I loved it. I was like, this is a place for me. I just felt like, when you find your people. And so I played in the U20 World Cup with Canada. John Herdman was kind of in and out of our camp during the World Cup, and he called me afterwards and said, "I want to cap you," and like, "Do you know what that means?" And I was like, kinda. And so later that year in November, I had my first appearance with the national team, and I've been stuck since.
Well, yeah. So you've represented Canada now at 3 major senior tournaments: the 2016 Olympics, the 2019 World Cup, and then in 2021, the pandemic delayed Tokyo Olympics, where your Canadian team took home gold. You beat Sweden 3-2 on penalties in the gold medal match. And we were actually at that game. There was no fans at that whole tournament, but the U.S. women's national team was at the gold medal match watching because the ceremony to get our bronze medals was right after that game. So we watched the penalty kick shootout. I remember it was so late at night, Janine. Like when it went into penalty kicks, we were all kind of like, oh my God, like it felt like it was 1 a.m. It was so late.
It actually was 1 a.m. I think kickoff was like 9 maybe, because originally the game was at 11 a.m. And
it was so
federations
hot.
were like, this is not safe.
Yeah.
We need to petition to move the game. So they moved it to 9 p.m. I remember like we didn't get back to the village till like 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you guys must have had a fun night. But so I want to hear, I saw the penalty kick shootout in person, but I want to hear what it felt like for you to watch that and then to win gold in a moment like that.
I mean, it's so funny talking to you about this stuff because I know you've experienced like all of this, and so it makes it that much better because I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was just such a weird tournament. I think like we are such a process-driven team, and we try and be so prepared for every situation. And when you go into major tournaments, that's exactly what you need. Like you've got to be able to be adaptable and weather the storm. And I actually remember there being like a 20-minute period in the semifinal when we were playing you guys, where you guys were just absolutely crushing our box with crosses. And then I think Julie hit the crossbar, and I was like, what is happening? We need to get the ball to the other side of the field. And it's just like moments like that. And then we had gone to penalties with Brazil in the quarterfinal. And so we had experienced it once, and it's like total elation and devastation multiple times in a short period of time. And I just imagine that's just not good for anybody's heart. So I had started the game against Sweden, and then I was actually on the sideline during the shootout, which is even worse than being on the field because you literally just can't do anything. So you're just crossing your fingers and toes and everything, just hoping that things go well. And I mean, we just practiced that so many times. And when you have a goalkeeper like Stephanie Lebe, who just can stand on her head at any moment, you have no doubt that things are going to go well. And when you play a team like Sweden, just incredible players, you think this is literally going to come down to one kick. And it came down to Julia Grosso, who was one of our youngest players on the roster at that point. And I remember her kicking the ball and the Swedish goalkeeper getting her hand on it. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's just saved it. And somehow the ball hit the back of the net. And it was just like...
Oh, I have chills, and I'm like literally so mad because I wanted to win that Olympics.
It's the beauty of sport. It was just like in that moment, it was so crazy. And it was just so weird because you like playing in front of no fans in a game of that magnitude is just so bizarre. And I think what's so cool about that Olympics is there will never be one like it. I hope,
Yeah.
fingers
Yeah.
crossed, again. And so I think just with all things considered, I'm really proud of the way that we weathered so many storms in that tournament, and with the biggest storm of them all just being like literally on lockdown for the entire Olympics.
There's another Olympics coming up this summer. Hopefully it is a very different, hopefully there's fans. It's fun. Of course it's going to be incredible. It's in Paris. Like what? It's going to be so cool. But this Olympics is going to be the first time that your Canadian team has gone to a major tournament without the living legend that is Christine Sinclair since the 1999 World Cup, which is just an insane statistic. So tell us a little bit about Sink. She's also your teammate at Portland. What have you learned from playing alongside her for so long, and how much will you guys miss her this summer?
I could probably write a book on things that I've learned from Sink, and I know that our team shares that sentiment for sure. She is just the epitome of what it means to be a winner and a leader and a champion in so many ways, not just the actual title of being a champion. And I've been so lucky to have played with her for so many years at the international level. And one of the biggest reasons why I came to Portland is because she's here. And one of my dreams was to play alongside her at the club level. And it's just been so, so great to be able to just spend more time with her, not just in a soccer environment, but like really grow our friendship. And I've really, really valued that. And I just think we are so lucky and we were so spoiled to have a leader like her for so long, because she embodies what it means to be humble. I think everybody that knows Sing knows she doesn't really speak much. And so when she speaks, she has everyone in the room's attention and she just commands the presence of everyone. And I think that that's such a unique quality. And a lot of leaders, I think there's a stereotype around leadership that you have to be like this loud, vocal, outgoing, kind of like dominating personality. And Saint could not be the more opposite of that. She embodies like what it means to lead by example. And so I just really, this sounds so funny, but I just feel like for the first couple of years in the national team, I just kind of like watched what she did and watched her behaviors. And I still am in awe when I watch her in our like finishing sessions, because she doesn't kick the ball hard. Like when you watch some players strike a ball, like let's say Sophia Smith can absolutely kick the heck out of the ball and it goes in almost every time. But when you watch Sink do it, she just is a finisher. Like she literally said this to me the other day, and I was like, you need to write a book about this. She said, I just put it where the goalie isn't. And I was like, yes, because it's that easy. But it truly is that easy for her because she's been doing it for so long. I could talk about her all day. I'm just really grateful that I've had the experience to be under her leadership for so long, and I'm even more grateful and honored to call her a friend.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you speak about her that way. We actually had Jessie Fleming on this show earlier this year, and she spoke so similarly. And what really strikes me about that is similar to what the national team is going through right now. All of a sudden, we don't have Megan Rapinoe. Alex Morgan's not on the roster. Becky Sauerbrun's not on the roster. And we're going to have to see younger players like Rose Lavelle, Lindsey Horan, Crystal Dunn step up and fill the shoes of those players, just like you and Jessie Fleming are being asked to step up and fill the shoes of somebody like Sink. And to see the players of our generation now filling the shoes of our like childhood heroes and the women who inspired us to play for these national teams and to work so hard is a really, really cool moment and opportunity that I feel like this tournament is going to feel different for us, because it's you and the people our age that are playing those roles now. I want to talk a little bit about your group at the Olympics: France, Colombia, and New Zealand. How does Canada, who have kind of like unlocked this key to the Olympics, how do you prepare for such an intense tournament with so many games in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, the Olympics is chaos. Like, it's just pure chaos. And I think it's going to be really interesting to play in an Olympics without the likes of Christine and kind of that guard of players, Sophie Schmidt, Desi Scott, Stephanie Labbe, all of the veterans that we had at the last Olympics, because those players, as you know, really pull you through that chaos and like, just like I said, bring this calm in a massive storm of play, rest, train, play. Like you get 2 days in between games, which is wild compared to the World Cup where you get 4. Like it's bizarre to me that they're so different. And you said we've kind of unlocked the Olympics. And it's so funny because we talk about that in the team. It's like, why is this so different for us than the World Cup? And what you have to realize is that it is a completely different tournament. It's so different. There's 12 teams. Everyone's good. Like there's no, quote, easy game. And as we saw in the Women's World Cup last year, that's becoming true for the World Cup as well, which is just a cool side note. But yeah, the Olympics is just kind of, you brace yourself for what ends up being 2 weeks of just fatigue, and it's truly eat, sleep, play. But it's so fun. Like, it's just what every player's dream should be. Like, the more games and less training sessions you can have, please sign me up. It's really fun. But I think what's so cool about our group is that we have 3 really different opponents. And that can pose a lot of challenges, but I also think it's a really cool opportunity because you have to be, like I said earlier, so ready to adapt to different styles, different intensities. For some reason, I feel like we draw New Zealand in a lot of the tournaments that we play in. We've played them so many times. And it's been really cool to see how they've evolved and how they've gotten so much better over the years. And you know, they have Ali Riley, who is always really charismatic and fun to play against, and their heart and drive to succeed is just, you can feel that when you play against them. So that's the opening game, which will be really fun. And then, yeah, France is France, like some of the best players in the world.
The host nation.
The hosts, we always draw the hosts too, whether it's like Brazil or Japan, like we're always playing the hosts, which is like, what a fun environment to play in. France during the Olympics, it's going to be crazy, but maybe the most talented team, top to bottom of the roster in the world. Just crazy talent on that team. Played them so many times. And then Colombia, who myself, I haven't played very many times, but was fantastic at the World Cup. Mm-hmm. They've obviously got Linda Caicedo, who is a superstar, and a lot of really great players that I think fly under the radar and definitely deserve more credit. So it's going to be a crazy group. It's going to be really difficult. And just like every major tournament, you've got to beat the best to be the best. And it's just kind of one game at a time, and then get as much rest as possible, get those carbs in, and go again.
I love that. Get those carbs in. Dang, I really missed that. That is incredible. I'm really excited for you guys. It's such a difficult tournament, and it keeps striking me that there's only 12 teams, which is just fascinating. It's going to absolutely fly by, but I'm really looking forward to watching you all play. I do want to touch on really quick, women's soccer in Canada is taking a huge step forward. They just announced the Northern Super League, which is a 16 professional league starting in Canada next year. How do you and your Canadian teammates view this new league? Like, obviously, it's a great step for women's soccer in Canada. Do you think that some of your teammates will go play there? Are you maybe a few years away from that? What are you expecting when this league starts?
I'm so excited. It's so cool. There's not enough credit in the world for Diana Matheson and the team she put together to make this happen. It's just really cool when you hear someone say they have a vision and they want to do something, and then they literally go out and do it. Like she said, I'm going to build a Canadian soccer league, and she literally went and got all the pieces and created a business plan. And she came in our last camp and presented to the team a little bit, the logo and the colors and all of the crazy things. And it was just this total, unbelievable moment where it was like, wow, this is actually happening. And for so long, we were like, we're one of the only top 10 nations that doesn't have a league. And she's incredible. And I literally just would be remiss not to give her so much credit. But the NSL, which is just a really great name also, and the colors are really cool. They're like Northern Lights colors.
It's so cool.
I'm like a super aesthetic person, so I was like, this is great. You did a good job on this. But the markets that they're playing in are great soccer cities. Obviously, they'll look to expand as the league grows. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Canadian players playing there, it's definitely something that people are so interested in.
Mhm.
You always want to watch and see how leagues do in their early years, and it's never easy, but what an incredible time to be women's soccer coming into Canada, and just women's sport in general, and the hype around it, and fans want to go, and it's going to be crazy. They're going to have great crowds, and I think what's really, really cool, similar to like the USL in the US, is it's giving the players that have had to go overseas to find somewhere to play a home, and the ability to play in front of their families. And for Canadians, that's never been a reality. Like wherever we've wanted to go, it's always been abroad, whether that's the US or Europe. And so to know that there's the potential for one of the best leagues in the world to be in our backyards is just, it's just so cool, and I'm really proud, and I'm really excited, and I'll be a big advocate for this league.
I know. I think it's such a huge step forward for Canada. Oh, duh, Sam. Like, of course, it's a huge step forward for soccer in Canada. I think fans of your national team have now like the opportunity to have a local community where they can go out and support players, and so I just think it's such a huge step. The idea of some of these international like cross club tournaments that are coming up too. I know this summer the NWSL is doing a tournament with Liga MX in Mexico, but then there's also the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and the future of women's soccer in North America in the CONCACAF region is looking so much brighter with every passing year as things like this pop up and the opportunities just grow. So I do want to transition into club soccer now on that note. Briefly, I'm going to bring up Manchester again just because it was so much fun playing there together. I know you played there for 4 seasons in total. What was your favorite thing about the WSL in England, and how do you think your game improved and grew from your time there?
Oh, massively. I think what's so cool about being in England is you obviously have the really, really rich history of men's football.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to be immersed in that, like I'm a soccer junkie. I watch soccer whenever I can. I'm like up at 6 a.m. watching the Premier League in Portland. Like I love to watch the game. I love to immerse myself in it. And so when I got the opportunity to go to England, that was kind of something that I didn't think about initially, but when I got there, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, I lived a 20-minute walk from the Etihad. Like, I went to so many men's games. I saw Man City and PSG playing the Champions League. Like, all of these games that you just gawk at when you're watching them on TV. And, like, that became the norm for me every week, which is crazy. But it's been really, really cool to see the WSL just continue to grow and see the investment just skyrocket. And I think so much of that credit needs to go to the Lionesses and just what they did at the Euros and what they did at the World Cup and just their success and the way that they advocate for women's sport and just accessibility for young girls in England. You know, I still consider those girls my best friends. You know, I'm very close with Ellie Roebuck, Alex Greenwood, and just to see the impact that they're having on their country and pushing things forward there. And that's such a big reflection of the WSL, like Barclays' massive investment, seeing these, you know, teams that were playing in the championship or like the lower half of the league playing in their men's stadiums, you know, Arsenal moving full time into the Emirates. It's just like, I love to continue to follow the league and I loved playing in it. And I think that was the first time being in England where I really felt like a professional footballer. Like, there were just a couple moments where I was like, this is how it should be.
Tell
everywhere.
me what things made you feel that way that maybe other leagues that at that time didn't make you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when I got drafted to the NWSL, it was still quite a young league. And I think they were figuring it out, and I was playing in Houston, and you're kind of trying to, you know, they were put their partners with the Dynamo, and you're trying to like play in the men's stadiums, and we didn't get great crowds. And there are just realities to playing in a younger league. And there are different realities when you're playing somewhere like England where there's just like more stadiums and more people who are paying attention to the game. And I think I went at such an interesting time. I got there in 2018, and probably, you know, like when you and Rose came like halfway through my time there was really when it started to boom. And I remember I think it was my second season. Yeah, my second season when we played at the Etihad for the first time. We played the Manchester Derby in the Etihad against Manchester United. And I think there was like 32,000 people there. And that was by far the biggest club crowd I've ever played in front of. And I just remember walking into the locker room and our names were on the lockers and our jerseys were hung up. And it was just kind of this moment of like, whoa, like this is where the game is going. And we can play in these stadiums and we can sell the tickets and like people want to watch women's soccer. And it was just kind of this like moment of awe and realization that like, wow, the sky truly is the limit for this game. And so that was probably the moment where I was like, wow, this feels like really cool. I'm like a professional soccer player and we're playing in this massive stadium and you walk out and you hear the roar. And now, you know, for a team like Arsenal, that's the norm. Like they're playing in front of 40, 50,000 fans every week. And I just think the WSL is a really, really great example of how to build a successful league. And the NWSL has done an incredible job as well over its 11th season? And we're seeing like crazy numbers of fans, huge investment, so much talent coming over to the league. And I just think the NSL coming in at this time is perfect.
It's so awesome. And it also strikes me like where you now are in Portland is one of those stadiums that ever since the beginning of the NWSL was the place where we all would go and feel professional. Like I remember my rookie year, my second year, 2015 and 16, I was playing for Western New York and we'd go play in Portland and I'd be like, this is different. Like this is a different feeling. The community cares about this so much. There's, I forget the number, 20,000 people at almost every game. The vibe there made me feel like a professional. So it's cool to think that that's where you're playing now. And then even to just zoom out a little bit further, there's new standards being set with other teams in the league. Kansas City built their own stadium for their team. So the growth of women's soccer in both America and England and now Canada is something that's just, we've been in this growth time. So we've really seen like, maybe we weren't there at the very beginning, but we've seen a lot of this growth happen. So I want to hear about your time now with Portland. We know that you missed last season because of your ACL injury, but in your first game back from your ACL, Janine, you scored 2 goals. One of them was an absolute screamer from way out. So you're getting back on the field. You're in Portland. You're finally back on the pitch. How does that feel? And how does it feel? I think you guys lost that game. But how did it feel to be back and to score? Were you kind of like, oh yeah, I'm ready to be back?
That game was wild. Like that will go down as one of the most wild games I've ever played in my club career. Like I think the score was 5-4. And
yeah.
What's even more wild is we probably could have won the game scoring 6 goals. Had a couple more like fallen our way. And you mentioned Kansas City Stadium. That's where it was. It was sold out. It was incredible. Such a cool atmosphere to play in. But yeah, I mean, like I was just like banging my head on the door in preseason, ready, like let me free, like unleash me. I need to play. And I just have so much respect for our medical team here in Portland and my medical team with the national team who handled my ACL so brilliantly. I spent a lot of time down in Miami I got my surgery in Miami and I did some rehab down there and got to give a shout out to Bill at Aries PT. Bill. They were so great. Bill, nice. So when I came back to Portland and the Portland staff took over, I was never in doubt that things were going the right way. And so the goal was to be ready for that first game. And I was ready and I was available and we were in Kansas City and I got in at the beginning of the second half and I can't remember what the score was at halftime. I think it was maybe 3-1, maybe? I can't remember. And the second half starts and I'm pretty sure they scored right away. So it was like 4-1. And I was thinking, well, we've got nothing to lose. And it was just, I don't think I'll ever play in a game like that again. I would describe it as like the closest thing I have ever felt to being in a flow state.
Wow.
Take the situation of the game away, I was just so excited to be playing. And I was like, okay, every time I get the ball, I just want to go forward. And I have such incredible teammates. I mean, like, look at some of the players that I play with. We have just such an incredible team that's so fun to play with. And it was just really great because there was no point in the game where we lost hope that we could come back. So the first goal was off a corner and I kind of was just like, I'm going to hit it. And then it barely went in between AD and the front post. And I was like, okay, let's go, let's go. And then, you have somebody like Morgan Weaver and Sophia Smith and Jessie Fleming and Hina Sugita, who's just unbelievable. And we just kept going, going, going. And then, yeah, the second goal probably will be one of my favorite goals that I've scored in my career. And they're always so funny, right? Like, I'm sure you've had this experience too. You kind of just like, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to swing my leg and let's just hope it goes in the goal.
Kind of the best goals where you're kind of like, well, if it goes in, it goes in.
That was the best case scenario. I'll take it. So, it was, yeah, and we really did play to the last whistle. And I mean, Kansas City's just on it. They're just savages. They're just rolling through the season. And yeah, it was a really weird feeling after that game because I was obviously devastated that we had lost. But I was just really proud that I had made my way back. And felt as normal as you can feel in those moments. So that was really great.
Yeah. Well, so this is my last question for you, Janine. We just talked about your first game back from your ACL injury. So I want to just touch on your recovery. I know that you're involved with a study called Project ACL, which is a 3-year project that recently launched in collaboration with FIFPro, England's PFA, Nike, and Leeds Beckett University in the UK. The goal of the project is to understand why there are so many ACL injuries in women's soccer and figure out what more can be done to prevent them. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that, your own recovery and your role in this program.
Yeah, I mean, like, whatever I can do to help the research and share my story and my experience. And my ACL was a bit different in terms of mine was a contact injury, which is really rare actually with ACLs. I just kind of got stuck in a weird position and it went. But what I think is really, really cool about the program is it's going to get so many different experiences of players and for the first time really be able to go in depth about player health and menstrual cycles and how all of that is related to ACL injuries, like fixture congestion, pitch surface, like all of there's so many factors. And I think for the first time, it's really, really cool because this study is going to be able to go in depth about all of that. It's not just going to be like, well, we're going to, guess that this is a factor, or maybe it was this, or maybe it was that, or this is the reason why it's such an epidemic. So I'm just really, really excited for there to be such an investment in this injury because it is just wild that this affects so many women. And I also think, and you've had your fair share of injuries, we all know that it's such a horrible thing to go through, but it also, you become part of this community of players who have gone through not just ACLs, but someone like you in your situation or long-term injuries somewhere else. And you kind of have this connection with another player or a group of players that you didn't have before. And for me, that was really cool. I talked to Viv Miedema pretty much through my entire recovery. We messaged back and forth, and she was just a really great sounding board for me and like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what are the things you're feeling? And I hope she feels like I could be that for her. And so that was really cool. I talked to Beth Mead a couple of times, and there's obviously a lot of players that have gone through this, and I felt so much love when it happened. I had so many people reach out and offer, advice or whatever you need. And I just think it's a really great community. And so if this study can also connect people through injury, that's really, really great. So yeah, I mean, it's so cool. It's long overdue that this has happened, but when you have voices like Leah Williamson and Miedema and Beth Mead really putting their names behind this, it's really great that this is launched.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this actually kind of brings our interview full circle. One of the first things we talked about was kind of feeling grateful, the ability to be more grateful for your opportunities to play now that you have been forced to be away from the game for a little bit. So I'm so happy that you're back on the field. I'm happy that there are players like you and all those incredible players you mentioned lending their voices to this cause. And hopefully the ACL injury situation can be improved upon soon. I know that you have to get off to practice, Janine, so I'm going to let you go. But it has been so much fun to have you on and to catch up a little bit. You are one of the most incredible teammates and friends that I got to play with. So I'm really happy to hear how much you're doing to push the women's game forward in so many different ways. And I'm excited to see you on the field with Canada at the Olympics this summer. So good luck, and thank you for being here.
It has been an honor, Sam, always. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Janine. Thank you all so much for listening. Janine is just so easy to talk to. I loved hearing about her Canada team and all of their experiences at the Olympics. Janine really takes on such an important responsibility of like being able to speak about issues in the game. She's so educated about the Northern Super League. She's so educated about the ACL epidemic that's happening in women's soccer right now. She really is just such an incredible ambassador for players who are wanting to leave this game better than they found it. And Janine is somebody who's just walking the walk in that area. I feel like she's a great resource and a great leader in so many areas. I feel really lucky to have such a great relationship with her. And honestly, the world just really needs more people like Janine Beckie. This is our last official Friendlies interview before we transition into some Olympics content for the duration of the tournament. But don't worry, we have 2 more player interviews dropping shortly with 2 U.S. Women's National Team players who are both heading to France for the Olympics this summer. So stay tuned on this podcast feed and on our social media channels for news on those episodes. One of them may even be dropping at the end of this week. Make sure that you're following along with us across our social media at Women's Game MIB. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, especially for the next few weeks of Olympics content. You'll be getting an email detailing everything that's happening, and it will be delivered to your inbox at least every Monday. Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll see you soon.